What an amazing introduction. I almost feel like we should just meditate rather than have me intervene with yet more words, which can surely not be more prophetic than those that Mishka read. But thank you very much for inviting me here and for allowing me some space. I'll introduce myself a little bit, but I just want to say that I'll speak for a little while. I'll share some of the things that I think about and that I care about with you. And then let's have a real conversation about what's ahead of us. I just think food is one thing that we all are experts on, and I claim deep expertise. I've eaten many times a day for many decades. So, but many of you have expertise too. So let's have. I want to leave some space to have some conversation, some more general conversation. But let me just say a few things. As Mishka mentioned, I'm a farmer, an organic farmer. We have well, by our standards, a small organic farm in Saskatchewan. We grow grains, oilseeds, pulse crops. What are those? Peas and lentils. And we have a small cow-calf herd, and I'm happy to report here that we have, of the 52 cows we have 43 live calves on the ground as we speak. Okay, so that's part of my work. I farm, and I'm a parent. We have 4 children, which is, of course, also at the heart of who I am. I'm a gardener and a cook, and as I noted before, an eater, an enthusiastic eater. As Mishka mentioned, I also teach ethics, and I actually graduated from the University of Calgary some decades ago here with a PhD in ethics and philosophy, but I don't recognize the place. You've built so much, and I'm glad that Mishka mentioned that others too are disoriented by how it's built, because I couldn't find my way around this campus anymore. I entitled my talk here, Creating a Renewable Food System from the Ground Up, Ecology, Eating, and Ethics. And the eating, of course, is very clear. The ethics I've just talked about a bit. But what I think we need to all be cognizant of is that we are completely dependent on our ecology. That we need to be far more aware of what complete dependence we are here. And I think that's an important recognition, because if we don't assimilate that, we tend to be overweeningly arrogant. And that dependence and interdependence is something we have to keep in mind. That's an attitude that we have to keep in mind. I'm very acutely aware of that as a farmer, and I used to say always, farmers are perhaps more aware of our ecological dependence because we're on the front lines. And then, as a Mennonite and a pacifist, it dawned on me that that's the wrong language. Front lines is military language. That's not what we want to say. We're at that interface, that concrete interface between our ecology and our livelihoods, our food. So in some ways, I do think that farmers have a particular place, but it's a place that more and more of us should share, because we as farmers actually can't change the system within which we live and farm unless all of us who are eaters, and that's all of us, weigh in and begin to change how we see food, who we are in relationship to our food and each other. I mean, this is a project that is not just farmers. So when I speak from the ground up, that's all of us. We all stand on this ground, and we all eat around these tables. So in some ways, when Mishka first had this application, or was preparing this application for this conference and contacted me, I said to myself, that really isn't my context. I'm not a social worker, and I'm not what they consider officially in the helping professions, although clearly I'm in the helping professions, but so I wasn't quite sure what my ground was. But when I think about it, this is all of us, so if we're going to weigh in and create a new food system, which I think is both possible and necessary, then all of us will have to weigh in. Our lunches and our lives depend on it. This will need collective effort, and I want to say a little bit about this later. But food, when we talk about collective effort, food is so much everybody's domain that if there's one place around, one sort of area around which we have some hope of organizing ourselves and being active, food is one of those areas. Nobody can ignore it. So it is a real common denominator, if you will, for activism. There's an old dictum that says environmentalism begins at the breakfast table. And that's right, that's right. It shouldn't stay there, but it begins at the breakfast table. So I want to talk a little bit, when I get into it here, I want to talk a little bit about our current food system. I want to talk a little bit about the values that underpin that system and some alternative ways in which we take our environmentalism to the breakfast table and then beyond the breakfast table. And the current system is in some ways hard to understand. I teach a course at St. Andrews College with a colleague that's entitled Food, Faith, in the Rural Community. And most of our students are urban students. I mean, most of the students you teach are urban students too. That's where the majority of our populations live. So when we start the class, it's always an open question for me. How do I engage students in this question of rural communities and food without them sort of taking that step away immediately to say, well, those are farmers and that's their problem. And often people are, and thankfully, very sympathetic towards farmers. We have actually, when they did a recent survey, we have a very good reputation publicly as farmers. And so but that's the kind of distance that for genuine learning, for genuine transformative learning, doesn't allow students to really enter in. If it's about them and not about us, we tend to learn it as them. So my first assignment for students is go away and find out what you're eating. Just choose anything on your plate. Your Saturday night pizza, whatever is your favorite food. Go to the grocery store, whatever you're eating regularly or like to eat particularly, go away and just find out. Find out where it came from, who handled it, how much the producers got paid, just what is it? And I always have at that moment when, these are graduate students now, and here's this farm woman who's giving them this Mickey Mouse assignment. And, you know, there's always that moment when I have this sort of recognition that they wonder whether I shouldn't have stayed on the back 40, whether I'm really up to this, because this looks like an easy one and really not graduate level. So off they go. And then it's a very interesting dynamic. I remember always, and I tell this story sometimes, a tall young graduate student who was particularly clear that this would be really easy. And so he said to me when they came to ask, well, what kinds of things they should do, he said, well, I'm going to research a chocolate chip cookie because I really like chocolate chip cookies. And I said, you do that. And and he had been quite dismissive. This would be easy. And when the assignment was due, he came to me with two things. He said, I'm not researching the whole cookie. I'm just going to work on the chocolate chips. And furthermore, could I have a 2-week extension?